take you back to Cape Town now, where MPs have been grilling Police Minister Senzo Mchunu on claims that he's linked to criminal kingpins. Newzroom Afrika's Zoleka Qodashe is on that story and joins us now live. Well, quite a lot of toing and froing over interpretation of words. What does immediately mean? Is it now or now or sometime later? But the minister insisting people shouldn't be fussy and rigid about the meaning of now.
That's correct, Vuyo. The interpretation of the word has come under scrutiny before the ad hoc committee, with MPs really trying to nail down the actual meaning of the word and getting the minister, or attempting to get the minister, to actually concede that in terms of the dictionary definition, the word immediately means now. Of course, he has said that he cannot concede to that because he fears that it may prejudice, or it may be prejudicial to him and the case that he seeks to make before the ad hoc committee. But I think another important thing that has come out is in relation to the interministerial committee that was announced by the president in 2018. Now, yesterday we heard testimony from the minister saying that essentially there was no IMC in the 7th administration. And so he said that in the 7th administration, that particular IMC was dissolved because it was a function of the 6th administration. But an important point that was raised, particularly by the EFF's Julius Malema, is when the IMC was actually announced and when it was established. You remember that the president made the announcement in KZN in July of 2018. And when he did that, that was in the 5th administration. However, the establishment was in the 6th administration of the IMC. But then it continued along administrations, or rather, it continued from that administration to the next one. And so that is the point of clarity that has been sought by MPs. But the minister also introducing new information in relation to the IMC. He says that there was a cabinet resolution that may have resolved not to have the IMC in the 7th administration. Of course, that isn't information that we've previously been told, but it's information that he has now relayed to the ad hoc committee. But this is not a new point that has been made before the ad hoc committee in relation to the IMC and the particular powers that would be bestowed upon the minister to actually make such a directive, because you'll remember that he was chairperson, or rather the police minister is a chairperson of the IMC. And so that was previously the former minister, Begicele. And so that has been a point of contention in relation to where the minister would have such powers, because if there was no IMC, then he could not have exercised his powers as chairperson of the IMC. And so that, in relation to the constitutionality, lawfulness and legality of the minister's decision, has come to the fore yet again in that regard. Of course, the minister saying that there was no IMC in the 7th administration, and that is why it could not also continue. And that is why he also could not consult with the other ministers that would form part of the IMC. You'll remember that several ministers formed part of that. And the reason why the IMC had not met, and in fact the last time the IMC had met was in September of 2023. And so it would only meet at the behest of the chairperson, who would be the Minister of Police. And so because there was a failure to actually convene a meeting of the IMC, that is why it did not meet. Yesterday we also heard questions around whether there was a closing report of the IMC, because you'll know that the previous administration, or the person that would have held that position in the Ministry of Police, would have handed over a report to the incumbent. And so because of that, there is no closing report of the IMC, then it means that, that's according to MPs, that the minister took a unilateral decision to actually disband dissolve the INC. And so we're expecting that when we convene, we'll continue around that thread. We saw just before we adjourned temporarily that the ANC's chief, Ndumiseni Ntuli, was asking questions also in relation to the coincidences that kind of, when strung together, can lead to an inference that essentially there was alleged infiltration or criminal infiltration in the criminal justice system. And so when we return, we're expecting that other members will have their chance to pose questions to the minister before the proceedings in relation, at least to the minister, conclude for the day, Vuyo.
Zoleka Qodashe with that briefing, that committee, of course. Proceedings there expected to resume in a moment. But that's where I leave things for today. Kolim Gambi is, of course, next.